and I've had to dust every single night, every single morning, and it's still like tons of pollen everywhere.
You dust every night?
I have to with the pollen because otherwise I wake up and my eyes are all itchy and gross.
Oh my gosh. I would never open my windows.
Yeah, we just keep, literally, we just keep all the windows closed. And then we go outside and we're like, oh, it's so nice out here. Like, nope.
Fresh air.
Close the door.
All right, your pollen stories are live on YouTube.
Excellent.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. I'm going to put my little University of North Florida Osprey symbol up now, but I'm here if you need me.
So remind me, how do I get my picture to show up? Usually it just comes right on.
There should be on the bottom someplace that it should pop and say stop video or start video if you've been turned off.
Thank
There
you.
you are.
Appreciate it.
April, how's Penny feeling? Fever's gone, thank goodness. Rash is improving, thank goodness.
Rash.
She managed to catch a virus in the middle of all of this, considering the Scythers have literally been on like lockdown. I'm the only one who goes anywhere. I don't know, but it was not my favorite momming experience over the weekend. Yeah. So.
Poor little.
And she's so little, you know, if something were hurting, you know, you sit there and say, oh, you know, does your belly hurt? And she says, yes. And you say, oh, does your ear hurt? And she says, yes. And you say, okay, this is not a good assessment tool. But I think she burned through it. Kid stuff.
Good.
So thank you for asking.
I'm going to give Hillary just another minute and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Leanne.
Of course, Kate.
You saw my smoke signal?
I did.
I'm on the other side.
And you have video.
A minute. I'm in the office, so we'll see how that goes.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's a little after 7. So I'd like to call tonight's school board meeting for Thursday, June 18th to order. Can I please have tonight's attendance?
Ms. Durgan, Mrs. Giftos,
Here.
Dr. Gill,
Here.
Ms. Casalonis,
Here.
Ms. Layton,
Here.
Mrs. Seither,
Here.
Mrs. Turner,
Here.
and Mr. Bennett.
Here.
Oh, no,
If you
Chris.
could,
Leanne, can you just
Yes.
promote Hillary? She's in as an attendee.
oh, sure.
Is this just a way of keeping her from talking the whole meeting?
Hmm. With that, if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I swear I'm at the standing station today. That's why I didn't shift spots. Are there any adjustments to tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, moving into public comments. A couple of ways that you can provide comments tonight. One, you can email us at publiccomment@scarboroughschools.org, and we can read that statement into the public record, or please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting and we'll promote you as an attendee so you can speak. The raising of your hand is similar to lining up behind the podium in a public setting. You will be placed in the order of your arrival into the queue. Due to recent issues with other districts' Zoom meetings and security, we ask that you use your legal name for all public comments. Please also state your full name and address, including the town if you are not a Scarborough resident for the record. Each member interested in speaking is invited to comment one time for approximately 3 minutes, and we will do our best to keep the time consistent amongst the participants. Please refrain from directing statements at or about individuals, and also please note the board cannot reply or respond to the comments made this evening. And seeing one. Mark, I've promoted you. If you can unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Do I have a clear connection?
You do.
All right, great. Hello, my name is Mark Tardif. I live in Buxton. I'm the Vice President of Faculty for the Scarborough Education Association. And first off, I want to thank you all for the time that you have put into this entire budget process. I know it's been long and difficult. We all recognize that it's been extremely difficult. Sorry to use the same word again. I should have changed that up. And there are a lot of hard decisions that have had to been made. On behalf of the SEA, I want to respectfully request that the board keep all faculty and educational support positions in the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Karen, I've promoted you.
Hi, my name is Karen Walker. I live at 15 Grandview Drive in Scarborough. I am a teacher at Wentworth School and I am an instructional coach. And I am imploring you to not cut any personnel, including bus drivers, teachers on provisional contract, and instructional coaches. During the upcoming unprecedented school year, we will need more staff to keep our students safe and to educate them. I would like to speak on behalf of our teachers that are instructional coaches to briefly share with you what teachers that are instructional coaches do during both in-person school and what they did during distance learning. Teaching has become a profession that requires much more than what it looked like when we went to school. Coaches support enabling this to occur. There are 4 roles that coaches play at all phase levels. The way this looks at the time that is spent on each of these roles is different based on the needs of the phase level, as well as the district and the phase level goals. These roles are coaching. As a learner-centered coach, including data analysis to guide professional development and instruction, co-teaching, model teaching, and giving feedback to staff on lessons. As a learner facilitator to support new staff on best practice instructional strategies and helping teachers to learn and teach Scarborough Public Schools adopted curriculum. As a resource provider, ascertaining quality resources, and when they include technology, helping to ensure they meet data privacy requirements, planning, organizing, and facilitating required standardized and progress monitoring testing. With instruction and support, assessing students upon teacher request, meeting with small groups of students as needed. During distance learning, coaches organized, planned, and led professional development. We help teachers to be able to use learning management platforms, including Google Classroom and Seesaw, as well as Google Meet, amongst many other digital teaching resources, learning resources. Continuing to educate children for the future, coupled with current changes to our practice, will take a team, whether we are learning in person, at a distance, or in a blended model. Teachers do and will need additional support to successfully accomplish that task and the workload they face. I hope that this has helped the board and citizens to understand the importance of not cutting the teachers that are called instructional coaches. Please do not cut any personnel. Thank you for this time, and I appreciate all the work that you are doing for our schools.
Thank you, Karen. I'm just going to give it one more second to see if anyone else has any comments tonight. Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comments. Moving into new business, 6.1 School Board Summer Meeting Schedule. This is our last regularly scheduled meeting of the summer. Usually we move into only having one meeting in July and August, recognizing that, as I've said probably 800 times, there is nothing normal about this year or this season. So wanted to really talk about whether or not we should have more meetings, if we should stick with the 2 meetings throughout the summer based on when we have a budget vote coming up, looking at how we're getting back to school. So the calendar is on. If we were going to follow our traditional pathway, the first meeting of the month is July 2nd. Knowing that lots of people will probably be away for that, not sure that's the best time to have a school board meeting over the holiday weekends. So really just wanted to open this up to what folks are thinking about as far as frequency of meetings, and if there are already scheduled vacations or downtimes that we're going to have. Alicia?
There are 2 concerns that I have. I don't really take a position about when we meet, other than there are 2 subjects that I think that we should consider when we schedule our meetings. One is the teacher's contract and releasing that information to the public. Has been an issue, as we all know. And I'd like to have some sort of forum for that, and invite our attorney to come talk about that so that the public can ask questions and we can ask questions in public about why the details of the contract are not released before the budget vote. So that's one request that I have. And then the other request that I have is when we made decisions about distance learning, it was, obviously under imminent circumstances, and we didn't really have time to provide feedback to the extent that we wanted to. And I know that there's a full team of individuals working on distance learning and opening our schools. But I do think it would be helpful to schedule times to check in throughout the summer so that we can allow the public to give input on that and so that we can provide input. So I'd like to consider scheduling some of those updates in the summer as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Kristen?
Yeah, my comment was to Alicia's second point, to cover what we are doing on the START team. So our last set of meetings are the 22nd and 23rd. So if we have to have a second meeting that last week in July, that might be helpful. Because I do think that there's going to be a lot of information, and I think the board and the public are going to be pretty interested to hear that. And I want to make sure we have time. That was it.
Agreed. Thank you. I would also say that looking at a budget vote on the 14th, we should probably be considering something right around that time frame as well, just to know what happens. Is it successful, or do we need to look at potentially having to go back out on referendum, and what our options are at that point. So I think that should probably factor in as well. So it's starting to sound like we have a full season of meetings for the summer. April?
Just for clarity's sake, I guess, we currently have a meeting on the schedule for July 16th. So that would have been what was our scheduled July meeting. And not that I absolutely have to be in attendance, but I did plan our vacation, our family vacation for the week before that. And so I will not be available the week, the 5th through the 11th.
Okay. Nick?
Oh, am I muted? I'm not muted. So if we have a meeting, on the 16th, and Hillary, if she was here, may know more about this, but I know they're still trying to hammer out exactly when to sit down and sign, get both parties sit down and sign the contract. It hasn't ratified, it's up to signing it. Obviously, we can't probably present it and talk about it until after it's signed by the letter of the law. So I don't know for that issue if it would make much sense in meeting before that happens. But I know it's supposed to happen this month, so that probably is a moot point for July. I guess I just want to be mindful of everybody's schedules. I know everyone was expecting to only have 2 meetings in the summer. I mean, I think August might be the more pressing time for us because of the emerging COVID. I mean, those of us that are all on the START teams know how deep those conversations are, and I think there's going to be a lot of information to share. And maybe that comes out in the form of a workshop that we add to a meeting so that we can cover more. I think that might be a really great way to get that information out in a way that's concise and able to allow us to chat a little bit before an official meeting. So I guess I'm wondering, do we need more than 2 meetings over the summer, or do we need to pair in a couple workshops with those 2 meetings so that we can cover some of these more detailed topics?
That's a great point, Nick. My only concern about waiting until, and if I'm going to follow when the calendar is, and thank you, April, for keeping me honest on the dates that were scheduled, that puts us to August 13th. And I'm worried that that's not enough time, that with school starting basically 15 days later, if people need to figure out childcare or work with their employers, if there's at home, I really feel like we would not be doing them the proper service to not have more notice if we have it. That's just a concern that I have as we look at this. If we know closer to the end of July, and maybe it's if we know we can publish a meeting then, I just would really hate to sit on that information and not have public input. Sarah?
Yeah, so this may be a public, a special meeting, and I can talk about this a little bit more when we get to the budget, but assuming we pass our second reading tonight, next week town council will do their second reading. If their number is different than our number, then we have to have another vote. And that would have to happen before the referendum. So that's either a special meeting next week at some point or the week after that. And it could literally be a 15-minute meeting, or it can be a regularly scheduled board meeting, but just want to be mindful that we do need, there will be action that we need to take depending on the outcome of their meeting.
Thank you for that. Hillary?
I was just going to suggest that, Kristen, can you say again what the last day of your start team meeting is?
Yeah, it's on the 23rd of July.
So that is a Thursday. So I was just looking at the calendar thinking if we want to process that information as quickly as possible, the next date for us to be able to do that would be July 30th. So should we just keep the regularly scheduled July 16th meeting and add one for the 30th? And maybe that is a workshop, like to Nick's point.
I think
The
that's
16th is going to be too late for us to do anything for the budget, though. So I think unless.
Well, I'm just trying to be mindful of April's schedule because I was going to say the 9th and the 23rd, but that conflicts. The 9th conflicts with April's schedule, and then the 23rd, I'm guessing, won't be enough time for those meeting materials to have been, made into like a cohesive piece of information for us to look through. So, I mean, I guess we could do the 9th and the 30th. The 9th being enough time to do anything with the budget, and then the 30th being late enough to do the information from the start team, hopefully. That would be 3 weeks in between, but it would still be 2 meetings in July.
Yeah. I'd say the other option is we put a special meeting on the agenda for next Thursday night. And if council does not change the numbers, we cancel the meeting. Just a thought.
I think
Kate, does that turnaround work?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, April.
That's okay. I think that the 9th is much too late to have the budget talk. With referendum the following Tuesday, like people want to know what they're voting on. We need to turn that number around quickly for the voters, because once town council sets the referendum number, that's what goes out. But people are going to want to know what our response to that number is in terms of what specific reductions we're going to have to make, if there are any.
We've also heard a lot of feedback that people want to hear before they vote what's contained in the contract, and I'd like to respect that feedback. So,
so can an earlier date? Yeah, can an earlier date of next Thursday accommodate both of those things?
I think so.
I would just ask Kate if that's possible to turn something around that quickly from a Wednesday to a Thursday.
I think we have to do that, Sarah, because as soon as the town council votes, the town clerk is going to be reaching out to us to have the document that puts that money into the categories that need to be posted at the polls and need to go with absentee ballots. So it's incumbent on us to sort of have at least a small plan to work towards any changes that might be happening. And I think we do need to move that same week and make those changes, because that document needs to be posted.
So why don't we bookend July for now? We'll do the Tuesday, the 2nd, and then the 30th.
I thought we were doing
No. We need to do next Thursday, the 25th.
That was next Thursday is the 2nd, isn't it?
No.
June 25th.
No, 25th.
Oh, never mind then.
And Leanne, can you invite somebody from Drummond Woodsum to that meeting if the contract's not public at that point?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can do.
Can we, would anybody be open to starting that meeting at 6 instead of 7?
Yep.
I'm in.
Cool.
Hillary, your hand is up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Kristen?
It was my old hand.
Mine actually is still up. What was the meeting on July 16th for? Anything in particular? Is that I'm wondering if we can dump that and make that an emergency should we need it after the 14th?
We could do that. and count it that way. It really was just the 1 month or the one meeting in July. I like the idea of pushing that out to the 30th in order to have the information for the START committee. And I was trying to think of the initials and they were just escaping my mind in order to have that. So if I have this correctly, we have a special meeting next Thursday night, 6/25, starting at 6 p.m. And then a meeting on 7:30, which would be a workshop. Any objection to starting that also at 6 o'clock?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Wait, on what date are you saying that for?
7:30?
No, what date?
The 30th.
The
30th.
Okay, thank you.
And we will hold the 16th as a special meeting, which it'll be on the calendar, but we're going to all hope like crazy that it can be canceled, that we won't need to have that meeting because everything will go well on the 14th. All right. Excellent. That brings us to Sarah. Second reading of FY21 budget.
All right. Wait, sorry, are we just leaving August as is, or did I miss that?
Yeah, August will stay on the 13th.
Okay, it looks like there's something ahead of me on the slides. The probationary staff.
Oh, looks like they're a little out of order.
Okay.
Do we want to, based on the way the slides are, do we want to make a quick adjustment and go through appointments before we go into the second reading?
Sure.
Sandy, does that work for you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Then let's go to 6.4.1, second year probationary professionals.
Okay. Leanne, you want me to just read these off? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay, so page probationary second professionals, we have Paige Andrews, Kate Chapman, Eliza Halby, Claire Ledoux, Catherine Newell, Jennifer Frataliano, not sure about that. Katie
Vitagliano.
What was that?
Vitagliano.
Thank you. Kitty Bava, Jocelyn Deannabelle, Carly Hughes, Brian Lamont, William Ridge, Heather Wiggins, Connor Casey, Kristen Goodall, Heidi Igneri, Kimberly Littlefield, Christopher Rowley, Gwen Cecier, Carla Griffin, Melissa Johnston, I believe. My slide is kind of covered up there. Melissa Mills and Caroline, and I don't see the last name because
Thompson.
Everybody's pictures on there. Thank you.
Yeah.
And these are still probationary people, I believe. And Megan Alteria, Jillian Daigle, Lauren Haringin, Scott McDonald, Laura Risbera, Crystal Tate, Daniel Anderson, Rachel Gilson, Rosie Lennon, Kara Moore, Ashley Smith, Susan Teal, Jessica Arnott, Megan Haley, Brianna Linscott, Sarah Oliver, Amy Sullivan. And again, the pictures are kind of covering up the last names here, so I cannot see the last names. If somebody could help me with those.
Ann Crowley, Maura Heffernan, Catherine, Litrocapes, Amanda Peabody, and Meredith Schwartzentruber.
Thank you. Continuing contract professionals, Zachary Barrett, Jessica Chapples, Whitney Nathan, Sarah Belton, Chantel Dion Mishu, Melissa Shabo, Nancy Carroll, Deirdre Dupree, James Temple, Aaron Cassidy, and the last two names I can't see, I'm sorry.
Ashley Fasulo and Abigail Wilworth.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just interrupt and ask for a quick explanation for anyone who's watching about what these second year probationary, third year probationary, and continuing contract means? I mean, I can do it, but it's probably better coming from you, Sandy.
Yeah, so first and second year people are probationary, and that means that, like, for instance, the first year you're hired, you have a 1-year contract, and then we put you on a second year contract and you're still probationary. And then once you've done 2 years, you can go to a continuing contract. That's your third year. And there's more stability with that. And hopefully people will stay on that continuing contract for the rest of their career. But the first 2 years typically are probationary, and that gives the district time and for the teacher to make sure that it's a good fit. And we're very blessed that we have great professionals that we have on these lists, and we're looking forward to having another great year with them.
Congratulations to everybody, and welcome. All right. Now moving into the second reading of our FY21 budget.
Thanks, Leanne. So normally what we would do at this stage is just to kind of do a short presentation and just go right into the numbers in the second reading and have some discussion. But given that things are changing so quickly and every day, I'm actually going to kind of run through just a high level overview of the reductions. And then we actually have some decisions to make as a board. Based on what we decide, we'll then move into the second reading. And Kate is a saint and has basically drafted the second reading with a number of potential outcomes. So hopefully one of those is an outcome that we actually land on, and she's not having to do fast math on the fly. But I'm confident that we will be covered. So I think I just want to make a point that this has been every year is a really challenging budget year. There's no easy decisions that came with this. There's hard decisions, harder decisions, and sort of impossible decisions. The challenges this year have been even more so than years past, just trying to balance the needs and safety of our students while also trying to meet the goals that have been set by us by town council, even if we don't agree with them or like them. Ultimately, it's their directive, and I think we've done a really good job and outspoken and fought for what we think is appropriate and needed to keep our students in our district safe. So I have shared this before, but it's worth reiterating that when we were going through the budget process, the Finance Committee, the guardrails that the Finance Committee used to make recommendations were to maintain programs and activities as well as staff who have direct interaction and impact on students. So that was kind of our North Star. So with that, I want to run through the reductions that are in the current budget. And I won't go into detail. You guys have all this information. And for anyone who's watching, I believe, and Kelly can confirm, but I believe all of this has been posted under the supplemental material for our meeting as well. And then hopefully after tonight, we'll get out a clean copy that everyone will have. We'll circulate it like crazy, and people will know exactly what's in the budget and what's been taken out. So starting with the operating budget, there has been some reduction in for personnel and just due to retirements and turnover. We've taken quite a bit out of discretionary accounts for all phase levels and departments. We've removed some non-instructional positions, so that's administrators. We've removed bus drivers, but we've actually put them back in as part of the COVID ask. And then we've reduced those in the investments. There was a request for 4 K2 teachers. We've reduced that down to 3 based on the current kindergarten numbers. We've made the decision or the recommendation to not backfill 2 instructional coach positions that are made vacant by retirement. We've changed the structure of the athletics administration. And then we've actually reduced the athletics budget even further because boosters have offered to step up and cover $30,000 for uniforms. So thank you very much to them for doing that. Cool. sorry, go back. Thank you. And then in CIP, we've cut about $250,000 for items that are scheduled to be appropriated, which have a direct impact on our tax rate next year, and about $750,000 from items that are scheduled to be bonded. And because it's a topic, I did just want to call out that the STEM lab as well as the retrofit for the garage are included in that number. Any questions before we move on?
You mean they're included in the reduction, not that they're included in the budget?
Correct. Yep, they're included in the 757,000. So there's actually no impact to our tax, like the mill rate calculation because of that reduction, but we did feel it was important to make that reduction. Diane, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one clarification. So the 2 instructional coach positions, the way this is written, those are not being made vacant by retirements of those instructional coaches. They're being made vacant by other retirements at that level. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
And can you clarify that those are the only changes in the instructional coaches, Sarah?
Sorry, my goodness.
I believe that's the case, and Kate will correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Yep. Cool. So any other questions before we move on to the decision point? Sorry, Leanne.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you guys will remember that in the original budget, the one that we had for first reading, we had $100,000 in the CIP for long-range planning that was dedicated, they were going to be used for the planning and design work for the new school. That was, we knew at the time that that wasn't enough and that it was underestimated, but we didn't have the time to make the adjustment before first reading. So we left it in there with the decision that we would change it after first reading to bring it up to what it needed to be. At that point, we were kind of going back and forth with town council, and we were already being asked to reduce our budget. So it wasn't until our last finance committee meeting where we made the decision on whether we wanted to just leave it at $100,000, which we knew was going to be underfunded, whether we wanted to put the full amount in, which is 375, so that would be an additional 275,000, or whether we wanted to take it out. And we made the decision or the recommendation as a finance committee to actually fully fund it on the basis that it's needed. We believe that the project is still needed. Our enrollment numbers of the growth in this town have not changed. And, you know, delaying this project is only going to incur more costs with the need for portables, et cetera. However, we also decided to leave it in because we knew that that information was going to go to town council finance committee, and we really just wanted them to have a conversation about it. And so what we had asked them to do was, we want this to be in, we believe there's still need for it. However, we would like it to be funded out of impact fees. So therefore, it doesn't have an impact on our operating budget. We don't have to make any further reductions in order to cover it. And we can continue on with the project as planned. They have not made a concrete decision on that. They had some commentary around it, but really it's up to us as a board to make that decision, knowing that if we keep it in fully, there are other things that we're going to have to take out, either out of CIP or operating budget, and potentially take out even more depending on what town council does at their meeting. So I'm going to put it out there for discussion, but the couple options that we have are do zero, so bring it back down to zero. We could fund it at 100. We could fund it fully, or we could fund it somewhere in the middle and ask that town council makes up the difference with the impact fees, which I believe there's about a little less than $200,000 that are available. That's available in the impact fees. And Kate can give us that exact number.
April?
So just to build on what Sarah said, the finance committee did have a long discussion about what to do about this account. We all see merit in fully funding it and making sure that the community understands that this is the need and this is how much it's going to cost to contract an architecture firm. And I see value in putting that number out there frequently so that no one feels blindsided by that number when they see it as a line item in our budget. The conversation on Tuesday afternoon between the Town Council Finance Committee Town Council Finance Committee members and two other members of the council were also present, did not go well. They were not receptive to the idea of that money, of those monies being in our CIP. As Sarah pointed out, we as a board still can prioritize those funds, but if I'm being honest, I think that the recommendation of the council is going to be to remove them, or their directive is going to be to reduce our CIP by that number. And that is going to put us in a position of having to decide whether or not we're going to prioritize those funds over other things, or whether we are also going to take them out. I also just lastly think that there is there are bigger reasons to take the money out in terms of town council appetite for things like this. And under no circumstance do I want to not put forward something that I believe is a need because I'm afraid town council is going to say no. And so that is not at all what I'm suggesting that the board consider. However, I do think we need to be realistic. And from where I am sitting, this is not going to be a realistic ask in this budget cycle.
Thank you. Nick?
Well, I've been looking over the handouts that Kate distributed, and she was kind enough to print me a paper copy. Thank you, Kate, because I got to sit out in my backyard today and write all over them, which is wonderful. And I've been looking at the 4 different versions, and one of the things that stands out to me that I may be the only one here that's championing it, or maybe I'm not. I've always believed that you should maintain what you have before you design or build something new. And so when I look at this $81,900 that's in here that we kind of go back and forth, keeping it or not keeping it for paving and maintaining playgrounds and fixing paving, I'm much more comfortable keeping that in there before even the full design work for the new school, only because I just have a hard time sacrificing maintaining our valued facilities that we have so that we can move money toward designing a brand new one, even though that facility is needed. And even though we've been talking about it for a long time, I do agree with April. I think that if we put everything in here, there's going to be a mandate to take some of it out. And so I guess I think about what Sarah just said about, if there's a portion of this $375,000 that we can move over to impact fees, or I know we've also floated the idea out there about funding this throughout several different fiscal year cycles. I think we need to think about that. I think putting the full 375 in here as it is will feel a little tone deaf to our council, and they'll have a hard time supporting that. But what I really want to champion is keeping in that 81.9, because I think we need to demonstrate to everybody, to our students who are in these facilities, because I remember this new building's at least 5 years out, but for our students that are in these facilities and for our community that shows so much value in all of our schools and pride in the schools that we have, I want to make sure that we're keeping them up the best we can and not sacrificing upkeep so that we can design a school that's 5 or 6 years down the road.
I know, sorry, Leanne, I know there's people with hands up, but I do just want to make a clarification. Nick, the $81,900 is sort of a if we need to cut, and that was based off of the numbers that Tom gave at the Town Council Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday. So we would only need to cut further depending on what decision we come to with the long range planning line. So is your recommendation that we keep it at 100?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen?
Yeah, I want to start by saying thank you to the Finance Committee for bringing this up and fully funding it, to have the conversation, because if we don't, then we do lose sight of it. So I'm glad that you left it in there for discussion. That being said, I am not willing to cut anything else to fund that extra $275,000. I would support leaving the 100,000 in sort of building toward what we need. But I'm glad that we had this conversation so people know that the need is very much still there. Thank you.
Kate, I'll let you jump in.
Just a quick clarification. I think that with the scenario that the town manager laid out on Tuesday afternoon, if we keep the 100,000 that we have, he would still be looking for the 81.9 as a reduction to hit the 1.16% tax rate increase target. So it would kind of be a trade-off. If we keep the 100,000, then we'd probably need to reduce the 81.9 to hit that target. And the extra 275 is just kind of floating out there as not really being dealt with in a sense by the town council finance committee. Does that make sense?
That was
Thanks,
my
Kate, for that.
understanding
Yeah.
too, Kate.
Okay.
Alicia?
Well, yeah, never mind. Go ahead, Alicia.
Oh, sorry, Sarah, if you have a clarification.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm really discouraged by this conversation because it's our role to advocate for what the schools need. We all know that this is a need. It's not going away. Town council's not prioritizing it. And now for some reason, we're not prioritizing it either. And the rationale that I'm hearing is, well, because it's not going to be palatable to town council. That's not our problem today. What our goal today is to determine what our schools need and what the bottom line is that we can give to them, while trying to be respectful and mindful of the goals that they've set. If they're unwilling to fund it, then we come back and we have this discussion again. I mean, all we're doing is putting it forward, and then we can make other decisions. But we're not being champions for our school system or our kids if we say, well, that's probably not going to go over well, so we're not going to fund it. We all know it's a need.
Hillary?
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. That's almost exactly what I was going to say. And so I completely 100% agree with you. I think that, so I won't talk about how all of that, but I will say, in addition to what Alicia said, that, you know, we talk a lot about, oh, well, the school's 4 years out or the school's 5 years out, but every year or 6 months, or every time we delay funding this and getting it started, it's another year. So it's only 5 years out if it was funded now and work got started in this phase, like the architectural phase this year. Anything later than that, now the school's 6 years out. Anything later than that, now it's 7 years out. And like, I forget who just said it, that's 7 years or 6 years that we're going to be paying a cost every year to increase our capacity in a temporary way. And so I think it is important. We've already said that we're not going to prioritize it over jobs and programs, but I 100% agree with Alicia that this is what's needed. And in fact, one of the counselors yesterday, I think it was Jean Marie, I think she was probably talking about how she didn't like the idea of this money, but in doing so, she actually like listed out all of the reasons why we do need to do it. She said, we don't even know where it's going to be yet. And that's exactly right. We don't. We need to get started on that work. This is the money to do that work. We do need to find out where it's going to be. We do need to find out what it's going to look like. And this is what's going to fund that information. I'm done.
Kristen?
Yeah, I think those are fair points. And I mean, I'm not opposed to sending it to town council. I guess my thing is I don't want anything else to come out in its place. But like I said before, I think the conversations are important to have, and I'm not opposed to sending it to town council.
Alicia?
Thank you. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I forgot to say something that I really wanted to say, which is there's a lot of money in that impact fee account, and it's supposed to be put towards growth. And the town council's objection, one of their many objections to us accessing that money, has been you're out of budget cycle to access that money. So this is the time to put forward the request. So what, we wait halfway through the year like they're telling us, and then half of them are going to have the objection that we're out of budget cycle making the request. I think that we put it forward. Maybe it will prompt them to have the conversation about a little bit more thoroughly about impact fees and nudge them along. And then if it does unfortunately come back to us, I think we all recognize that we'll have to make some tough decisions again, but I would feel a lot better, and I would feel more responsible in our decision making.
I've been super patient, so I'm going to pop in real quick before Sarah and April, you're on. I'm going to agree that we need to put this to town council. If they want to cut this, they can cut it. But we are responsible, much like the next decision point that's coming up, to do what is in the best interest of our students. We know that we need a building. We know that we're growing. We know that social distancing is going to be darn near impossible in the facilities that we have. And don't we wish this had been started and we were getting ready to move in this year? Again, if we need to make hard decisions, on next week, we make those hard decisions next week. But I don't think we would be doing justice to the district if we didn't at least attempt to get the funding that we needed. Sarah?
Thanks, Leanne. I agree with what Alicia said about the impact fees. And I guess for anyone who wasn't watching, I'll just share that the town manager offered a suggestion, which was that we keep it in at 100, and that if we need it, we go back to them and ask for the remainder out of impact fees. We already know we need it, and we already know we want it to come out of impact fees. So we just need to ask for it. And there's always this money sitting in impact fees that is the school money to put towards growth projects that are impacted by growth, and we need to ask for it. And I'll say what everyone else is saying, just so it's on the record. This will not get in at the expense of jobs, and programs, but it is important, I think, and I will vouch for it, to go back to the council, and we'll make that argument again for it to be used out of impact fees, because we're asking for it at an appropriate time and not out of budget cycle.
April?
So I just want to throw in a couple of things, because I know from personal experience how frustrating it is sometimes when town council bats around a conversation and we've already discussed the topic and they are not using publicly available information to inform their decisions or their discussions. And so just so that you guys all are aware, they did have a lengthy discussion about impact fees on Tuesday night. And Ruth Porter gave the account balance, which after, and I'm not going to get the exact numbers right, and I apologize, after we pay the designated amount that they pay down school debt out of that account, and we can discuss the merits of doing that at another time, but right now it is scheduled to be $500,000 to pay down school debt is coming out of that impact fee account, and the balance on that account is only about $128,000. And so we can, again, I'm more than happy to repeatedly have the conversation about impact fees, but I just don't want us to go completely down this conversation whole without having recognized that they did talk about it on Tuesday, and some totals were given on Tuesday night. And so the resulting conversation was that there isn't enough in that impact fee account to fully fund this request as of right now.
Did they
Not
say
fully
when that
funded, but
when it gets replenished?
So the numbers that they use are 2 years prior. Yes, that what Ruth typically does is uses whatever we put in 2 years prior to pay down school debt. Because of the portable requests, over the last couple of years, we significantly overdrew what was put in that 2 year window. And for whatever reason, the amount that they're putting towards school debt to me seemed higher than has typically been the payment schedule out of that account. But it may just be a reflection of what was put in 2 years ago. I would have to look at the actual spreadsheet.
But I mean, when's their fiscal year end so that the account will be?
Fiscal year ends on June 30, Alicia, but I think that the collection of impact fees is just dependent on who's selling property, who's building and selling property. So there's not a way to necessarily predict exactly when that money's going to come in.
Yeah.
So that's why they've traditionally used the money that's already in the bank and then not, banked on, if you will, the money that they think is going to be coming in the same way that they would bank on like excise tax. That's pretty predictable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Hillary?
I just wanted to add that I was at that finance meeting. I think I've been to all the finance meetings. But I thought that the conversation that they had around the impact fees was interesting because it seemed to me that at least 2 of the finance committee members were reacted favorably to using the impact fees for this project. And in fact, one of the town councilors was the person who said to us, if you need it, you should ask for it and fund it fully. So I guess my question is, and maybe this is just a question to them on town council, or maybe Kate knows, if there's an item in capital improvements that's $375,000, does it have to be funded all from the same source? I mean, could they, instead of saying, no, we're not going to fund that, could they say, okay, well, 100,000 of that will be, what's the A? What is the A? Appropriated. And the rest will be used out of impact fee. Like, can they split a cost like that? Is that in their purview?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so I mean, I do think, again, that even convinces me even more that this is something, I mean, we all know that it's needed, and they can have that conversation about using impact fees or partially using impact fees. And I think that's important for them to have that conversation.
I think just to April's point, the math doesn't tie out completely, because if you're asking for 375,000, you have 166 in impact fees, you're still going to have more than 100,000 appropriated.
I was just using that as an example. I mean, they could say, we'll fund 100,000 and you fund the rest, or they could say impact fees can do half and you do half. I mean, I don't know. That's my point. If they're allowed to make those kinds of decisions on funding, like in terms of splitting the funding for one project into 2 different ways of paying for it, then that's the discussion that they can have and use impact fees as a part of that.
I think so.
Sarah, you had your
Man,
hand
I
up.
think we probably need to. Yeah, I was going to throw out a suggestion, but I mean, I think we need to vote on this, right?
We do. Do you want to have the conversation about the turf field before we make the vote, or is that just a separate discussion?
I think it's a separate discussion, and
Okay.
where we land on the CIP, or sorry, the long range planning is going to impact other things as well.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to fully fund the long range planning line in the budget for $375,000 for the planning and design work for a new school.
Second.
I am not going to open it up to further discussion because we have talked about this for a while. Diane, if we can move to vote.
Yes. Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yeah.
Ms. Casalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
No.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion does pass.
And just to put a pin in that, I think we can present it to town council with the request that 166 be covered out of impact fees, keeping the remaining 200 and some odd dollars in to be funded out of the tax revenue. So, okay, Leanne, I'm going to let you lead the second bullet point there.
Okay. Coming out of the meeting that the Finance Committee had on Monday, and before we go too far, again, thank you for the 1,000,000 hours that Finance Committee and leadership has put in. I have learned more this year about budgets than I ever thought that I would. So thank you for all that you have done to get us here. But something resonated that Alicia had said about what our responsibility is. And our responsibility is to advocate for our students and their safety and their needs. It is what we are elected to do, and to do anything less is unconscionable. The turf field was pulled from CIP. We know that the turf field is really close on age. It's at a point after the GMAX results that we need to make sure that we're testing it each season before kids are on there. And it was pulled because we're hoping that some corporate sponsor is going to come in and help pay for this. This is a responsibility that we owe to our students for safety. I know in conversations with Kate that that's not something that we can take on. We cannot put it in our budget to support this. But I think we'd be missing an opportunity to not advocate for a safety feature that our students need. So I don't know if this is a resolution that we put forward that we're respectfully requesting that they reconsider this and make sure that our students have a safe place to be, or we apply some other sort of a pressure in there of making sure that this is funded somehow, whether it's, you know, starting a crowdsource or getting it back onto the CIP budget. April?
So I have a few issues with the town council's finance committee recommendation not to put this forward. First and foremost, we know that this is a bond item that will need to go to referendum, and not including this in the FY21 budget process means that we will most certainly go this entire year without bringing up this discussion or putting it forward to the voters. There was a lot of discussion about putting it forward in November, which is not necessarily something that I don't know if I would support that or not. We need more information in terms of the condition of the field and what the results of the tests. I know we were waiting on core tests and some other things that couldn't be done back this winter. And maybe even I just need a refresh of where we are. But point being, I'm not supportive of town council deciding that because this has gone out to referendum once, that they're not willing to have this discussion again. Lots of things can change between now and next spring in terms of funding that project, and the climate in the community might be different. And to say right now that voters don't have an appetite for it and they're not willing to put it back out, just to me seems short-sighted, because this is a safety concern that we all have.
Thank you. Kristen?
Yeah, this is a super frustrating situation because we don't own the turf. It's the town's property. And I do think we need to do something to push them to leave this on the table. Like April said, if we don't put it in now, when are we going to talk about it again? That field is very close to not being safe for students to play on. So I don't know. I mean, I understand. I mean, I guess to some extent, I understand what they're saying, that they didn't want to put something out that the voters already said no to. I guess my feeling on that is I'm not sure they clearly explained the situation when it went out to vote the first time. Yeah. And I would really like another pass at it.
I agree. Alicia?
I unfortunately had to miss that meeting where they had the most recent discussion, but when we had that group workshop with town council, I was really disheartened that some of the comments included, well, if it was unsafe, the field would be chained up. And to me, it sounded like they might be willing to get to that point before they're willing to move forward. And so, again, this is one of those things that who's going to advocate for it? It doesn't seem like they have the inclination to do that. And we know that it's not in good shape and it's unsafe. And so I support your request.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, there were two big pieces of misinformation when this went down last year. The first was that replacing the field had anything to do with the act of vandalism that had happened. And that circulated through the community. All of us saw it online. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to clear that up, as both elected bodies really should have tried to do, because people in the community were just misinformed about the disconnect between that event and the need to replace this field. The other piece is that I think that the testing, I mean, we talked about it at length at one of our board meetings. I remember actually Athletic Director Legage and I going back and forth a little bit, talking about the nature of the test, that you're testing many different spots of the field, and some did better than others. Now, the overall average test allowed it to pass, but this is not a black and white situation. There are areas of this field, the high traffic areas, of course, just like a carpet in your home, that are dangerous, and that, you know, we can't ask our football players, please fall somewhere where no one's fallen before because it's safer over there. So I think there's just some miscommunication that it's disheartening to hear it not getting on the ballot, because I guess I can understand the base logic of saying, well, they voted it down last year, why would we put it back? We would put it back because we have better information and we've learned from the misinformation that went out last year. And I don't think it's okay to sacrifice our students and our athletes, not to mention our visiting athletes, their health, because we as elected members, and I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about all of us, didn't do a good job of helping our community understand the true nature of this situation.
Sarah?
I don't like it. I don't like the decision, but I disagree with the idea that you just put something back on the ballot because you didn't like the outcome. It was not like, it was poor communication, and I know that we take some responsibility for that, and we don't take all of it. But I think it should go back on the ballot. I absolutely think it's a necessity. It's a safety issue. But there's something would need to change, right? Either we would need a workshop or something where we get more information, or we need an updated ask, whether it's a reduced budget or an increased budget. Something needs to, in my mind, something needs to change before we can put it back on the ballot. Because if we're putting the same exact question, the same exact amount back on the ballot, that to me is manipulating our democracy.
Hillary?
I was going to say almost the exact same thing that Sarah just said, but then Nick convinced me that I might. So I agree with what Sarah said, but I think Nick has a point that there is information that maybe wasn't communicated, and that maybe that is what has changed. So I guess I'm not torn, because I think that there's anything, I mean, the turf, it's not safe. And there's places that I shouldn't say it's not safe. I mean, it is getting very close to the point at which we can no longer allow our students to play on it. It's not there yet, but I think it will be there before long. And if we don't have a vote and ask for it to be replaced again, then it might get there before we have the opportunity to do anything about it, which in turn is going to cost the district a lot of money if we want to keep playing sports and we don't have our own field. But I mean, but on the other hand, I think Sarah does have a point. Like, we can't just manipulate democracy because it wasn't the outcome we wanted. I guess maybe I'll go back to the GSEA. We kind of, it's very similar to that in my mind. Like, when we asked whether we should be joining the GSEA, we didn't put a lot of information out. It got voted down, and we said, you know what, we're going to put it out again because we don't think we did a good job putting that information out. The information that we had wasn't, like, we didn't think the voters had the information. And I think that maybe this is the same case.
That's a good point.
So I think I would support it, or support some, yeah.
Kristen?
Yeah, I respect that position, Sarah, a lot. And I'm open to the idea. I know when it went out to referendum, it was the turf and the track. I don't know the current status of the track. I would be open to the idea of just putting them out. And again, I would probably want an update on the information, because I know that I think the general feeling was it wasn't productive to do them separately, but I'm not opposed to that if that's what we need to do to get a safe playing field. But again, I don't know the status of the track and where we're at on that safety issue.
Can I make
Hillary?
Oh, am I still on mute now? Can I make a suggestion? Like, maybe could we ask the athletic director to summarize the information that he thinks, and maybe even Todd Souza too, I don't know, but somebody to summarize the information. And then we can maybe use that to write some sort of resolution.
Sure. Sandy or Diane, do you think that is something we could get in short order to get this back in front of council before next Wednesday? My hope would be to request from them, after a motion, that this wind up back in the CIP and go to the voters with whether it's new information or enhanced information in order to ensure safety.
Yes, I'll talk to both Todd and Mike, and we'll do our best to make that happen.
Great, thank you. With that, is there a motion to ask the town council to put back into the CIP the turf field repairs for fiscal year 21?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
And as we've already talked about it, Diane, I think we're ready for the vote.
Great. Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Casalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes, under the condition that we actually get new information. Something new. Something has to change.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Leanne, can I just clarify? I made a statement that the turf isn't safe, and I just want to sort of retract that statement and be a little bit more clear that it has its issues that we've identified, and that it's, like Hillary said, it's sort of working towards not being safe if we don't do anything about it. So I just wanted to clarify that.
It's a great point of clarification, and I would say the same, that if I alluded to it not being safe to put them back out there, rest assured that I would not be sending anybody that lives in my house onto that field this season. So, all right. Anything else with? We need to vote on one of the final motions, correct?
So I think what I'll do is I'll, at this point, ask Kate if she could just summarize maybe where we are and if there's any additional action we need to take before we vote on a second reading. I mean, our budget is not going to be it's not going to meet the town council's goal where we are right now. I think we're saying we're all comfortable with that because we're putting forward something that we can support.
Nick?
Are we, so I have Kate's materials in front of me, as I know I'm sure everyone does, but I'm actually flipping through them. Are we talking about version 1 here?
Yeah, so version 1 right now of the budget amendment includes the extra 275 for the long range planning. And it still includes the 81,900, which was a recommendation for reduction from the town manager. And we had kind of flagged in our budget documents the potential of taking out the building envelope maintenance, a remainder of that balance for 31.9, and the remainder of the playground upgrade money for 50,000. That was kind of what we had pointed to. So if we take a vote on version 1, it maintains all of those things in your budget that you're approving. And then the other versions are sort of different scenarios of taking different pieces of those things out, those different, the decision points that we're talking about here.
So there isn't one that has 375 in, but the 81,000 removed, because, correct?
What? I don't know. Did I do one of those?
No, that would be 1A.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So let's see. There was one for 275, keep 100,000. There was one for take all the stuff out. Total of 375 out. So we can make one, Sarah, that removes the 81.9 and leaves the 375. If that's the will of the board, I'll just have you guys take a water break and I'll figure out the math.
I guess we'll put out there.
Maybe discuss that for a sec here and we'll see what that
look, we're not going to make any friends on town council, but my I guess recommendation where I'm thinking right now is that we do go with just version 1 as is, and then if they vote otherwise, then we come back and we make further reductions to the entire CIP, maybe the 81,000, maybe some more from long range planning. But I think in my opinion and recommendation is that we just go with version 1. I don't know, April and Alicia, what you guys think?
I agree.
April is thinking.
That's 2. I mean, if we're just talking finance committee, I have some reservations that you guys don't have, so that's okay.
I mean, it's not just finance committee, but I'm just curious what other people think if we want to remove an additional 81. So the 81,000 that Kate has earmarked, just to talk about that a little bit. So there was 2 lines for sort of grounds maintenance, and we have already reduced from that. We've taken about $30,000 out that was going to go towards some paving and just maintenance of roads. And then there was we kept some money in there to make a playground at Wentworth move towards it being ADA compliant. So if we accepted this 81,000, it would reduce the playground, and then Kate, it would also reduce something else that I'm not.
It was the rest of the building envelope that sort of scheduled preventive maintenance of the walls, the masonry at the high school.
Can I clarify?
No, my hand's up.
Clarifying question. I'm pulling in Alicia. I'm just gonna go right in front of you, Alicia. No, I just want to clarify, because at the finance meeting, you guys had reduced the amount, but you left in the amount for the ADA compliance. Right. So is that the 81,009 you're talking about, or is that?
No.
Does this have anything?
To get to the 81.9, we would have to further reduce. that line, and which means reducing the playground, as well as further reduce the building envelope maintenance.
We've done partial reductions for both of those lines, basically cut them both more or less in half. And then what we're saying is we would take the remainder of those, and what we would have to do is, in order to advance those projects, we'd either have to sort of piece things together from operating budget if we wanted to move forward, or we'd have to defer and ask for it again next year.
Alicia?
So can I just ask a question before I make my comment?
Yeah.
I think that this was the meeting that I missed where Tom Hall, I think I heard you say, made this suggestion about this 81.9. Is that right?
Yeah, basically what he did was he took the information we gave him from our finance committee meeting, and he said, with what you guys have presented, you need to cut basically an additional $80,000 from your CIP in order to hit the town council goal of 1.16 mill rate.
Leave that alone.
But that
So
didn't.
Oh, sorry.
That didn't include the long range planning money.
Was his suggestion where that should come from, or who came up with the playgrounds and
No.
pavings?
That was
No.
That was Kate. I mean, I said at the finance committee that I feel very strongly about the 88 moving forward on the ADA compliant playground. To me, that's a huge deal to think of not moving forward on trying to get that playground accessible to kids that really need it. That's another thing that I'll figure out a different way. I mean, I'm not okay with that.
Kristen?
Yeah, I'm with Alicia. I'm not okay with taking that funding away to meet the ADA compliance. I hate that we're even behind on that in the first place. So I don't want to see that go.
April?
I apologize. I completely misunderstood what the full impact of that 81,900 was. I thought that was just the gates the security gates that we had talked about, and deferring some of the paving. I absolutely am not in favor of taking out the full 81.9, especially if it contains that playground ADA piece. Absolutely not.
So just to clarify, there was $67,100, which we identified in Finance Committee as a further reduction. That was the security gates and the paving, like April just said, and the $7,100 for the stage curtains that we were able to take care of with FY20 funds. So we had made those reductions, consciously and thoughtfully. And then what happened was the town manager said, well, if we could get another 81 or 82,000, then we would hit that 1.16% tax rate increase target. That and his was sort of a high level concept of where all the bits and pieces could come from to make that happen.
At the end of the day, $81,000 isn't going to move the needle on the mill rate that much, and it is going to make a big difference for our students.
Nick?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the actual spreadsheet from FY21 capital improvement budget, and if I'm reading this right, taking out the 81.9, which I've already spoken about, would basically wipe out the building envelope maintenance and ground and site maintenance dash playgrounds. It wipes out those two budget lines. And they were already reduced once from $176,000 cumulative, reduced $94,000 down to where they are now. And I think the initial reduction's enough. I think we need to keep that money in there so we can keep those resources up. And like Sarah said, 81 in the grand scheme of things, $82,000 is not massive when I think about what it means to those students.
Agree with you. Hillary?
I agree with what everyone said. I mean, yeah, we need to keep that in. But I guess I have a question, and maybe Kate can. So Tom did, or the town manager did say at that meeting that we needed to remove another 80 whatever from our CIP to meet the the goal. But why does it have to be from CIP? I mean,
It doesn't have to be from CIP, but I think the idea was that we were trying to stay away from the operating budget because.
no, I understand that. I just wanted to clarify that it doesn't have to be from CIP. He was just saying that you need another $80,000
Yes.
to meet that goal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. And other than that, I agree with everyone who already spoke.
Nick?
You're on mute.
I know. I caught myself as I started speaking. Just to clarify what Hillary just said, because we're way off that mark anyway, right? Because if we do or don't remove that $82,000, we're keeping the 275 in, which he wanted us to get out altogether. So we're way away from that mark as it is. I mean, what's $81,000 more away from that mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I think then oops, sorry, Kirsten.
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you to Tom, because I know he's really trying hard to make this all work. So I didn't want to just ignore all of the work that he did to try and make this work. That was it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think, Kate, that then puts us at version 1. If you guys are ready
Yeah, I think you're right.
to hear me stumble on a bunch of numbers. Okay.
Do you want me to read them? I don't know which one of us is sleepier.
Yeah. All right.
You're official and I'm not.
So I will move to approve to amend the FY21 education budget expenditures approved at the school board's first reading on April 9th as follows. The general fund operating budget increased expenditure budget by $556,000 to support identified COVID-19 related needs. Reduce expenditure budget by $1,374,383 as outlined in the supporting document. Add $400,000 in fund balance to non-tax revenue. These changes result in a reduction to the net general fund expenditure budget of $1,218,383. That then brings the amended general fund expenditures gross budget to $53,553,423, and the amended general fund net budget to $48,437,536.
Move to approve as presented.
1 second.
Ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
Mrs. Durgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos?
Yes.
Dr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Casalonis?
Yes.
Ms. Layton?
Yes.
Mrs. Seither?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
And Mr. Bennett?
Sure.
Okay. Leanne, procedurally, can I combine adult ed, capital improvement, and school nutrition, or do I have to do it separate?
I think you need to do it separately because they are 4 separate items on ballot.
Okay. So then move approval to amend the adult education budget by reducing the expenditure budget by $3,630, which brings the amended adult education expenditure gross budget to $194,558 and the net budget to $91,370.
So moved.
Second.
Ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
Mrs. Durgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos?
Yes.
Dr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Casalonis?
Yes.
Ms. Layton?
Yes.
Mrs. Seither?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
And Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
And move approval to amend the capital improvement budget by reducing the expenditure budget by $913,129, which brings the capital improvement expenditure gross budget to $2,220,112, and the capital improvements net budget to $675,915.
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Okay. And there's no changes to the school nutrition budget, so that stays as approved at first reading. And I think procedurally, we just need to go back to, or did I mess this up, Kate?
I think at
Is that
this
good?
point, if you just make a motion to approve the budget, the total education budget as amended, I think you'll be right where
Okay.
you need to be.
Perfect, thank you. So then move to approve the total education, general fund operating, adult education, school nutrition, and capital budgets as amended.
Move.
So moved.
Second?
Ready for a vote? Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 7th, 2020 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Excellent. I know that we have mentioned the names already for our probationary professionals and our continuous contract professionals, but I would like to take a moment and make sure that we confirm their appointments. Again, letting them know we really appreciate them. They deserve to be named more than one time tonight or recognized more than one time tonight. So I'd like to request a motion to approve our second year probationary professionals as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. We can move to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
A motion to approve our third year probationary professionals as named previously.
So moved.
Second?
I believe we're ready to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
For 6.4.3, our first year continuous contract professionals, this is one of those moments where Zoom just does not do justice. I wish that we could be seeing you right now, shaking your hands and welcoming you to the district.
Great.
But a motion to accept our first year continuous contract professionals as named previously.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Ready to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Katsalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Congratulations and welcome to the district. 6.4.4 is a motion to accept our adult education director. Sandy, I don't know if you want to read about Mary Ann Doyle or if you'd like me to.
I'd be happy to. Mary Ann Doyle is before you tonight. She's been chosen to fill the position created by retirement. My recommendation that she be the new director of adult ed. Ms. Doyle received her degree in special ed from the University of Maine in Farmington and her master's degree in ed leadership from St. Joe's College. Ms. Doyle is a certified adult ed director with over 20 years of experience in adult education and community in the community as an administrator, coordinator, and practitioner. She most recently was the adult ed director for MSAD 6. The recommendation is to appoint Mary Ann Doyle as the new adult ed director for Scarborough School System.
So
So
moved.
Second?
I believe we're ready to vote.
Great. Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill, Ms. Casalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Congratulations and welcome. All right, next, a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-60 for discussions concerning the superintendent's evaluation, not to return to public session.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay. If we can move to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Casalonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.